Please read the roll.
Avedisian. Buell.
Here.
Caban.
Here.
Camilleri.
Here.
Jerome. Curry.
Here.
Bella.
Here.
Fitzgerald.
Here.
Galligan. Gardot.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Hoffman. Holloway.
Here.
Iono.
Here.
Johnson. Kowalshan.
Here.
LeBeau.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Magnan.
Here.
Murata.
Here.
Osgood. Payne.
Here.
Patel.
Here.
Salemi.
Here.
Solomonides.
Here.
Carrier. Sweezy.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Torres. Vecino.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Public comments relative to agenda items. Public comments? No public comments. Approval of the minutes of the meeting of August the 6th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Are there any additions or deletions?
Correction. John, I believe I'm listed as being present at that meeting. I was not
You
here.
can, well, I'll call on abstentions. You can abstain.
Oh, I will.
No changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention.
Lou? Okay. Recommended for action. Report from the district chairman. That'll be in executive session. Report from the chief executive officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to make note, everyone has a copy of, Nick has put together 2018 news clips for the month, so you can see a number of articles that relate to the MDC. I would like to have Julie Laughlin come up, and she's going to give us a quick presentation on just a number of significant changes we made to the billing process and the look of the bill, and we've had a number of questions and comments. So Julie's just going to go and skim through some of those significant changes we've made in the last 6 months. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay. Good evening. So I just wanted to show you, because as Scott pointed out, there had been some questions recently regarding the bill. So I just wanted to show the bill on the left is what our bill used to look like. It was one page, wasn't a whole lot of information, wasn't particularly well organized. In November of 2016, the newly designed bill was put into effect. That was after many meetings and months of planning and testing it. You can go to the next slide, please. So this shows page 1 of the new bill, and I just tried to call out, I'm sorry, some of it's a little blurry, didn't cut and paste particularly well, but some of the information that we added that was particularly important was the explanation of charges, which there was nothing explaining what the charges were on the old bill. In the top right corner, it was a better organization of the payments. So it had your previous balance, your payments received, which that also wasn't on the old bill. We used to get a lot of calls to customer service about that. Outstanding balance and your current charges. So it was just a better math equation, if you will, to show what you owed as a customer. One of the other things we added that wasn't on the previous bill was the information box that is in the lower right corner. We still do bill inserts, which is where we primarily put a lot of our information, but for the months that we don't do that, this is a quick way to put information on there. It's easy for us to change. If we needed to put on something quickly for customers to see, this is an area that we can use, which has been very helpful. Next slide. This is page 2 of customers' bills. And again, in this area, we most recently reorganized the current charges section so that the charges were broken down by your water, your sewer, and then any federal or regulatory charges that might show up on your bill. This particular bill shows a lot of white space. That's only because this particular customer they only have one meter and they don't have a larger number of charges, but the white space was left there on purpose because for customers who have multiple meters or who incur, more charges, that space is filled up with that information for larger customers in particular. So, I think I have one more slide. This shows the back of page 1, which we always had the notice of customer rights on our previous bill as well. But we did make some updates to it. We improved the information that's on the bottom of the remittance form. We added a QR code, which is that black box that you see, so customers can scan that with their phone if they have a QR code reader, which is free to download. And it brings them right to our website to make payments if they'd like to. We made changes to where our customer service and payment center is, so we updated that information on there as well. And I think, do I have one more slide? And I just wanted to also just point out that the explanation of charges that showed up on page 1 of the bill, those are just sort of abbreviated descriptions because we only have so much space to write. But our website has a complete list, much more descriptive information about the charges, including for member and non-member towns. So that's where that can be found. Since, just to point out, because I don't think this had been reported to the full board in a while, since 2015, when we contracted with Kubra to do our online bill payments, we have the significant changes that we have made for billing and for our customers and improvements for customer service in particular was the online bill payment system that we have through Kubra, which expanded the ways customers can pay their bill. In November of 2016, we came up with a new bill design. In June of 2017, we went from quarterly to monthly billing. We did that over the course of a few months. We reported to all the member towns before we did it. In November of 2017, we were able to put the bill online. So all of our customers who use our online portal can actually view their bill electronically. In 2018, July of 2018, this summer, we officially can offer our customers paperless billing. And we have currently 3,000 people on paperless, and we have over 33,000 people using our online bill payment system. And just this month, September 1st of this year, we changed our payment terms. We went from 30-day payments to 25 days. Some of the things that are coming and that we're currently working on and designing are our retail cash payments so that we can offer customers ways to pay at CVS or Walgreens or any participating retailer in the area. We're trying to expand, and we're going to report on it in another week to the Water Bureau, is Operation Fuel and how we can expand that and offering our customers a mobile app. Any questions?
All right, Julie, could you just go back to page 2 for 1 second?
Sure.
Okay, so looking at the bill, the 2531 is actually what the customer is paying us for their water, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and the 1283 is a combination, it's mainly the Clean Water Program, which is the program to fix all the sewers in Hartford and comply with the consent decree, right?
Right.
And the 33 cents is the fee that we got hit with last year to support Department of Public Health, right? And neither one of those are really for the cost, that doesn't, the cost of our water is really the 2531.
Right.
Is that right?
Okay,
so
that's divided by 3 on a monthly basis, so that's a quarterly payment.
No, that's a monthly,
Oh,
that's a monthly bill.
Yeah, And so as commissioners are explaining this to their constituents who wonder why their bill keeps going up, it's the 1283 and the 33 that is really the cause of their bill going up. The cost of our water charges for production of water has increased minimally over the years. So the big increases are all that 1283. Just to make it simple to explain.
Chairman.
So what percent or
Further
what number
questions?
of customers receive paper bills?
I think, well, everyone's receiving a paper bill except for the 3,000 that are, so if we bill 100,000,
Electronically.
107,000 customers.
So 104,000 are receiving a paper bill?
Yep.
Less than 3%.
The goal is to expand that, obviously, and the first step was really getting people to pay online, and that's 30,000, so 33,000. That's has been a significant improvement in people paying online.
Is there further
You
questions?
You can still pay your bill by mail. You don't have to
Denise?
pay online.
Thank you. Since we're on the subject, do we have an estimate of how high the clean water charge will go?
You're going to get that.
That's in the next
Yeah.
presentation. There's a lengthy part on that, but it's
Yeah,
$5.
Depending on the choices that we.
yeah, we haven't, so when we presented in 2012 and 2014, the expectation was that the charge would not exceed $6 per CCF. The exercise we're going through with the long-term control plan is, over the next couple of months, we'll be able to redefine that in today dollars.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, are we still charging people to pay online?
If a customer sets up an online the use in the online portal, and they pay using their savings or checking account, there's no fee. If they pay using over the phone with their credit card or a one-time payment, it's $1.95 per transaction.
Okay, thank you.
Not to the MDC.
Right.
That
It's just
charge is not, we don't
Right.
charge that.
Wait,
Yeah, I was just curious, you mentioned we went from a 30 to a 25-day cycle. Could you explain that to me?
So the billing cycle was always 30 days. You have 30 days to pay your bill, and
So now you have 25 days to pay your bill?
you have 25 days to
That's
pay your
fine,
bill.
thanks.
Yeah.
further, Rich?
On my electric bill, they show me my consumption the previous year. Is there any way we could show on a water bill consumption from previous year?
So one of the things when we were working on the design for the bill was to show a chart so you could track your consumption.
Right.
That is something that it took a lot more work to do that currently in the SAP system, and with a lot of things that were going on through design with business transformation, we were sort of just waiting to do that. It is a tool that we can employ, but it would take a little time to develop. So if it's something you'd want us to do, we could work on that.
The basis would,
You may not want to do it, Rich, because your water may stay the same at that $25, and that 41 may grow to 50, and 50% of your bill is extra charges. So, people using the same amount of water, but their bill's going to increase like this.
well, sometimes you look
Well, it's
at
going
it,
to increase anyway, so at least it'd be a good idea to know why.
sometimes you look at it, and if I have a spike, I could have a leak, a toilet that's running. I've had things happen like that, and I say, gee, I wonder what happened from this year to last year. So sometimes it helps the user to figure out if there's consumption without knowing it.
Yeah, well, if it was a leak. Buddy?
Cost.
Well, the other thing that it might do is it might create a permanent record of increased usage for irrigation, and moving forward, I mean, there's been a lot of people that have asked, isn't there any way that I can be, exempted from at least part of the clean water charge, because I'm not putting this water down a sewer, I'm watering my lawn. So, and the answer has been, there might be some ways to meter that or to calculate that, but we haven't done it, and we haven't done any of that. But it would create a record, more or less a permanent record of the increases on an annual basis over the summer months when you do use irrigation.
Just to be clear, we do have those records. The question about putting the consumption
Right.
on the bill.
But I think
is a
that
different-
people might see, what the difference is. Also, what Rich mentioned, all of a sudden you get a bill that's higher, you didn't water your lawn, you don't know why it's higher or something, but you start measuring it, you go, gee, was it this high last year? And it wasn't, and then you find out there's something else
I'm
wrong.
not worried about
so.
cost, I'm worried about volume. Consumption volume is what I like the customer to understand.
Well,
do get
but
leaks,
people are going to be worried about, they're looking at their bill, and they're going to be worried about what they've been worried about. Ray knows this, you know this very well, because of people are using, water to irrigate their lawns, and then what's happened is with the cost going up because of the clean water charges, people have stopped using it, or stopped using it as much, because the cost is just so high.
Further discussion? Further questions? Thank you, Julie.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Julie.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Also, something I'd like to bring to attention, if everyone remembers at our August board meeting, August 6th, we did have a group from the Upper Albany Merchants Association, and they made a number of comments concerning the DOT landscape, streetscape project, and the reference to the fact that the water main and/or the services to the properties are not being replaced and should have been replaced. At that very meeting, they also mentioned a discussion about sewage in a basement, and it kind of implied that the reason for the sewage in the basement was due to the water system in some way, somehow. At our August meeting, the chairman and myself was invited to a meeting on August 10th. We attended. There were 40 or so customers there at the meeting, and we had a frank discussion about the water main project. So the history of the Albany project was the state of Connecticut, along with the city of Hartford, planned to do a streetscape. And the scope of the streetscape was simply to do bump outs in the street for parking and to do mill and overlay of the existing roadway. In 2013, this planning started. We had discussions with the city and DOT at that time in 2013, all the way up to 2016, that our asset management program was not to replace that water main until 2038. So the answer was, and as I mentioned in the meeting, you don't typically replace infrastructure, whether it's water mains or gas mains or those kinds of things, when you're simply doing a mill and overlay from curb to curb. You're not digging down in the road.
Especially in Hartford.
Especially in Hartford, because of the concrete road base. So the answer was, we're not going to be doing any of that work. We had that long conversation with the customers at the meeting and explained those facts. And the discussion came into, well, the concern was the MDC, and I mentioned at the August 6th meeting, the MDC, in a sense, owns the service from the water main in the street to the property line, and we are responsible to maintain that, and we agree with that. And the concern is that the remaining portion of the water main that services the building or the property from in a sense, the sidewalk all the way to the building is the responsibility of the property owner, and that's per ordinance, that's for every customer, all 102,000 customers in the district. The challenge that we have is, the chairman and I met with this same group in November of 2016, and we said exactly what we said in this August meeting, which is, we have no plans to replace this water main. The ownership of the services to the property is not the MDC's, and therefore, it should be considered to replace those services on private property by the project. The DOT and the city went forward with the project, and now they're concerned that they found some of the water mains on private property were in ill repair and need to be replaced. We iterated again that it's not our responsibility. Of 104 services from the main to the property line, the MDC had replaced over the years all but one of them. And so we had obviously replaced the remaining one. But any private property work should have been replaced, and they had indicated it's about $200,000 to $300,000 worth of work, should have been replaced by the project. So we got through that discussion, and we were very clear about ownership of those services, and that discussion kind of died down in the meeting. But then two other issues came up, which were related to specific properties. I believe it's 980 Albany Avenue. And a woman had suggested that inferred that the water main service leak associated with a sewer collapse, which the MDC didn't fix, caused her to be, her tenants to have to vacate and so on. The facts are completely the opposite. The contractor doing the work for the state broke our water main in the street, and we had to go out and fix it. Whether that water main leak damaged their private property service to the sewer, we don't know. What came first, the chicken or the egg? But we do know is that in December of 17, that sewer lateral was clogged. We verified it was clogged on the private property with our staff, and subsequently, months after, in February of 18, the contractor started to fix the service, and all of the sewage that was in the basement leaked out into the excavation, collapsed the excavation hole, and all hell broke loose. And so all of that work that was done actually caused damage to the MDC property, and the contractor's insurance actually paid the MDC $16,000 to fix what they had broke on our portion. So the important thing of this was the MDC did nothing wrong. This was damage done to private property by the private property contractor.
The owner hired.
And the owner hired. They actually had to hire another contractor to finish the work in June of 18, I believe. It was 18 or 17? 18. There were two other complaints about water quality. And so we actually tested water in a home and found nothing wrong with the water. Subsequently, DPH was at this meeting as well. DPH had indicated and offered their services to do some testing on Albany Avenue. They did some testing and found bacteria. We immediately went out that day and we actually tested in the hydrants up and above and below the address and found no contamination. So then we went back in with DPH and did split samples, and we did find of 3 properties, 1 property internal that had bacterial counts. And we made it very clear at this August 10th meeting that that bacteria that's inside the private property is not the responsibility of the MDC. Our water main in the street is clear. There is no bacteria. So we resolved that issue. We continue to work with DPH. We continue to work with the Upper Albany merchants. But the important point is the services that should have been replaced under the project are not being replaced, but it's not the MDC's responsibility, and we do not have any water quality issues at the MDC's water serving that area of the city.
Well, one last issue. The woman at 980 also had her lawyer there that was asking the questions
Right.
to the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. So the contractor working for the property owner at 980 paid the MDC $16,000 for damage that they did to our service. We're not aware whether or not, we heard through the grapevine, we're not aware of whether or not there was any payment to the property owner from the contractor's insurance. We don't know that. But the point is, we did not do any damage to that property, and we were not the cause of that property having to be abandoned and the tenants moved out of the property.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Okay. As part of an ongoing audit item, there has been a discussion about developing a whistleblower policy, and I know that Commissioner Hoffman has asked this question numerous times during the audit. Rita Kelly, who is our affirmative action consultant, who does all of our affirmative action work and submitting our affirmative action report to CHRO, really is the right person that would help develop these procedures and policies and be the one. All of the staff actually report or reports to her any concerns that they may have as it relates to affirmative action. So any of those reports go directly to CHRO. If there were a whistleblower claim and that person would go to somebody, we believe the best person would be Rita Kelly, who is not an MDC employee. She's a consultant, and she would report that to CHRO. CHRO would take any criminality associated with that report and issue it directly to the AG's office. So what we're proposing is to use Rita Kelly as our whistleblower. That would, any staff or anyone that had a concern would report directly to her, and she would begin to develop procedures and policies with legal to effectuate that policy. So that's a plan. If we have any feedback from commissioners that is, we don't have a resolution for that, but I just wanted to raise that because I know it's been a number of questions by commissioners over the years on the audit questions.
Booben? You have a question?
You are referring only CHRO, whereas I understood that recommendation was for any type of wrongdoings should be reported.
Correct.
So if you are planning to combine both together, then you should clarify both. And I think other part, you don't have to necessarily go directly to AG's office. We should have some arrangement within board here. Either you create a internal committee with some members of the board or not, review it, and then do to whatever actions you have to take. That's my opinion.
Lou?
Yeah, I guess this is somewhat related. My question is, what kind of complaints were, because you mentioned CHRO.
So
It's a whistleblower policy.
Right.
And my understanding is that a whistleblower policy is for something that is seen that's inappropriate, not necessarily of a human relations nature.
Correct.
So
We agree. So the question, my question to Rita was exactly this: is that her process that she deals with right now, which is a complaint from an employee of some nature of a affirmative action nature, that complaint would go to CHRO. My question to her was, if she had a complaint from someone outside the district or an employee within the district that was more not a HR related issue, but a complaint about wrongdoing, would she be and could she be an appropriate person to report that to either the board, CHRO, and if it did go to CHRO, it would, if it was in any criminal involvement, they would report that to the AG's office. So what we're trying to do is look for someone who's independent, because one of the concerns that the board had was it really needs to be someone outside the MDC. And so that was the issue that we were trying to address with independence.
If I could just give a brief example. Mercifully, this hasn't happened since I've been here. But you remember back with CRRA, they had an issue where one of their employees took one of the expensive pieces of equipment and brought it home and was using it for himself or for his business.
CRA
That's the
employee.
type of thing.
He sold it.
He sold
He
it.
sold it on Craigslist.
He sold it on Craigslist.
So, but that's the type of thing, if somebody's gonna blow the whistle, it would go to
FBI
Rita
caught it,
Kelly.
because it was across
and-
state.
And Commissioner, we'll look into whether we should have the audit committee take a look at that too.
Sure.
That's a good idea.
Commissioner?
Yes, alphabet soup, CHRO, what does that mean?
Mission
Committee on
on
Human
Human Rights
Rights.
and Equal Opportunities.
Right. Very good, Bart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
State agency.
Okay.
Okay.
When you finish, I want to make a point, but.
Okay, you want to?
Yeah, just I don't want to get off it, but when we had I should have raised this question, or raised this issue when the bill was there, because the state of Connecticut legislature, through its wisdom, has established a commission to look at ways to save money in Connecticut. The private sector people are involved, and they're looking at the pensions and everything else, and they've made some recommendations. And I was reading some of the recommendations, Bart and I were the other day, and one of the recommendations by the Milstein Group, which they brought in and hired to look at several of these issues, they looked at monetizing certain aspects of state property. In the case of MDC, I all of a sudden see MDC come up, and what they recommend is, because MDC's basic charges for water are cheaper than anybody else in the state, most people in the state, that there is a margin if they brought MDC's charges to their customers up to the same level that the other water companies are, there would be a gap there that they could monetize, and that then could be paid to solve some of the pension problems in the state of Connecticut. They don't know that obviously infrastructure is a major issue that we keep paying for. So because our rates were lower, they recommended that the idea was that you would increase our rates comparable to everybody else in the state and take that portion, monetize it, and pay it to the state to reduce the cost of pension or whatever other things. So you look at these things and you ask yourself, wow.
We're opposed to that.
We were opposed to it. And Bob Petroselli sits on that, on that commission. And I said to him this morning at Metro Hartford, I said, this is a good idea, wasn't it, Bob? Oh, he says, that wasn't a very good idea. I said, no kidding.
Okay. And just in terms of an update on the South Hartford Conveyance Tunnel, as we had discussed, we had to build a starter tunnel, which is about 400 feet in length, and the cutter head is going to be moved to the front portion of that that tunnel, and they're going to start to build the remaining trailing portions of the machine over the next month. So the plan is that the tunnel would actually start. Today, the schedule is to start at the end of September, actually drilling the tunnel. We are going to have a short presentation from Joe LaLiberty on the long-term control plan. We gave a full 1-hour presentation to BPW.
This isn't an hour.
And Joe's going to do it in 15 minutes, he promised me. A little bit on, if you remember the commemorative benches, we did receive an email from one of the recipients of the bench, Mrs. Cora. Yes, thank you, Cora. And she was the individual who her son had died in a car accident. And she sent us a very touching email. Not only did she thank the MDC, but she thanked the Chase family, who was also here and requested a bench. And the Chase family actually paid for her bench. So she was very happy, very sincere in her gratitude. So you all have a copy of that. And you want to read it?
Or you can have it.
Yeah.
You want to read it? Go ahead, read it.
Okay, we all have it.
I've got a
Okay.
copy. Let
Go
me
ahead,
just-
Bart. Why don't you?
Let me just read this to you, because, you know, there are so many good things that happen at the MDC and so many kind acts. And I'd ask you to review the news clippings that we've given to you, look at some of the other things that have happened over the month. Mrs. Cora writes to us, she goes, to John Myrtle and to Tom, who worked very hard on this. I took a ride to the church pool this morning to see Brendan's bench. It is absolutely beautiful. The placement of the bench is perfect. It faces the sun and the bridge. It can also be seen when driving over the bridge. I honestly don't know how to thank you enough. And you'll remember all that her son was tragically killed in a freak accident in this area. She says, I had sent the Chases an email expressing my genuine appreciation for their generosity. I made a promise to my son that I would make sure he would never be forgotten. I feel that with the help I received from all of you, I've been able to keep that promise. Whoever sits on this bench will see his name and think of him and enjoy the peacefulness of the river. It has brought me peace. Thank you so very much to all who were involved to make this happen
Or me.
for me. Very sincerely yours, Susan. And we've had some pictures of this, Scott, that we'll
Yes.
put on the website
Right.
so that everybody can look at. But it was
Very touching.
touching and a wonderful job by our crews getting this done in a relatively short period of time. So there are 2 benches done. Now, both requests have been fulfilled.
Okay, as it relates to town of East Hampton and providing water service to the town, as you know, we've been talking directly with the town and DPH and the town of Portland. We have submitted some technical information to both the town of East Hampton and to DPH. They had requested that a synopsis of the proposal be submitted to DPH through the town of East Hampton. So the town of East Hampton has submitted that document and has outlined a couple of the options. One is basically 7 miles of 12-inch or 7 miles of 16-inch pipe to service, in a sense, Phase 1 for the town of East Hampton, which ranges anywhere from $26 to $32 million. This is the project that the DPH was hopeful that they would be able to fund in a grant form, 50% grant. We don't have, obviously, any formal commitments. There's a lot of work that would have to be done to move forward with this project, but DPH is trying to support it through the state and through OPM. So we'll have more in the future. In terms of the budget process, we, as you know, we have had Cone Resnick working here in place of the vacant Director of Finance. They've been working with us, working with John, trying to finalize the monthly closings and also finalize the audit, which has been done. We did request them to provide us with an assessment for developing procedures and policies within finance. We actually met with them today based on their assessment. They're going to come back to us with a proposal to actually develop those procedures and policies, and also, more importantly, to coordinate with the BT SAP upgrade process, because we want to make sure that we have the right staffing in the right locations during that process. We did effective, based on the recommendations, to hire a comptroller. That was one of the first recommendations. We did just hire a comptroller, and she started yesterday, right, John? So we're very grateful. We're going to inject her directly into this process and into the BT program. In terms of, I'm looking for the monthly, the meetings with the towns. Kerry, when is that? When is the first meeting with the towns, John, for the budget process?
17th.
17th? Okay. We actually, as you know, we've been talking regarding the Colebrook Reservoir and the dam and the 1965 agreement, where we actually funded a portion of the capital investment, which is approximately $204,000 a year. The last payment on the debt service will be in 2019. We spent in 2018, as part of the operational agreement, $685,000. And the concern we have is, as that dam system gets older, what is the benefit to the MDC? What do we do moving forward with this contract? The life cycle cost analysis of the hydro units within that dam needs to be considered, because if we have a major investment in that equipment, what's the payback as it relates to the rate in which the return we're getting on the generation of electricity. So we're meeting with the Army Corps up in Colebrook tomorrow to talk about future engagement with a future contract. We have had and did have
That one there, will you be able to do anything before the budget next year? Because that 600, you just said 600,000 we spent this year goes to 900 plus thousand next year, I believe. We saw a couple months ago when you had a slide.
Yeah.
I mean, next year, another 300,000, it's almost $1 million cost there. So are you going to be able to do anything? I know Chris Stone was looking at it, remember a few months ago we talked about it, so.
I would say that we know that I'm not sure we know that the next operational expense is 900. The 600,000, it has been increasing. Our expectation is going to continue to increase. Our concern is, and as we've said before, is the drought of 2016, there was no water left behind the dam. So the question is, what are we doing with that structure when during an emergency there's no water behind the dam? So we're going to meet with them to understand what their expectations are, what our expectations are moving forward with the end of this. They call it in the contract the project. The project, in our position, the project ends effective the last payment of debt service, which is 2019. Okay. So we're really going in there with an open mind, but we have concerns about moving forward with future investments in that dam structure, and then future investments in the hydro, and then also during a drought, there's no water behind the dam. So we have a lot of questions for them, and that's what we're going to be talking about. In terms of Learn to Earn, we've been talking about that, how successful that project was. I, myself, Ray Burrell, and Dave Kaminsky, who helped lead the program from the Bloomfield Learn and Earn program, had been asked to speak at the Connecticut AWWA Sustainability Workshop on the 24th, so I'll be going there. I'm going to defer discussion regarding DEEP and the landfill. We're going to be talking about that in executive session. I would say that they have allowed, and we are planning to install the RF meter readers that they have allowed us, and our staff has met with their staff, so we are planning moving forward with installing the meter readers, the electronic RF devices. Also, just as we've talked about the same issue with Pratt & Whitney, we have approximately 150,000 gallons per day of groundwater being discharged to the East Hartford system. We've notified them, same scenario with the state of Connecticut. We've notified them effective July 1st. They're on a quarterly payment basis, but effective July 1st, the bill is approximately $660,000 per month. Our staff has been meeting with their staff. They're trying and planning to remove the majority of that stormwater, groundwater, from our system and discharge it directly to the East Hartford stormwater system. So that would drop down from 150,000 gallons per day down to about 20,000 gallons a day. So that's going to correlate to about $85,000 a month. So we are working with Pratt & Whitney on that issue.
What toxins in there?
The majority of this is groundwater from basements. So they do have one location where there are toxins, and I can give you the detail. I don't have that detail tonight, but I can give you the detail of that. But that's a smaller portion. It's only 2,000 gallons per day. The majority that's going to be remaining is about 14 to 20,000 gallons a day. The majority of that 20,000 gallons 12,000 of it is stormwater. It's just stormwater. So it's minimal. It's not the same magnitude in terms of the contaminants that we have with the state. And then we are going to be working with Commissioner Magnan and the Community Affairs Group. We're going to be having Commissioner Magnan in the next week to start to work and develop a speaker bureau. And we're going to use that as a way to develop and train and educate commissioners to go out on behalf of the MDC to speak at town council meetings and other venues to talk about specific issues, whether it's the Clean Water Project, whether it's the budget issues. So Commissioner will be coming in next week. We'll work that out, and then we'll bring that to Community Affairs for review. And then I think we can say that's it, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman.
It's a highlight.
Yeah, there's plenty more, but.
Bud?
Just a quick question for Bart. I didn't get before you finished the council's report. Bart, is there any, and forgive me if I missed this somewhere along there, but is there any news about the Marriott Hotel, the original sewer connection? Was it sewer or water connection that we were doing?
Sewer.
The original CETA or whatever.
It's the assessment.
I'm disqualified from that one because I was chairman of CETA when that thing was built. So Chris has been working on it.
That's been referred to outside counsel. Attorney Sweeney out of New Britain is handling that. It's in suit. As we speak, both the state of Connecticut and the Woolman brothers are defendants. So the case is still pending.
It's still pending?
Correct.
So it's with, but it's not with the owners of the hotel, it's with the state of Connecticut?
Both.
It's with both of them.
Both. Correct.
More to come. Is that it?
Yes, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Bill, excuse me, I had a quick question.
Rich.
2 or 3 months ago, there was a big spike in concern of the South Meadows dike. I haven't heard anything more about it. Is that still?
It's in the Army Corps evaluation process. You have some.
Yes. So the Army Corps, through their New Hampshire office, has received approval from the DC office that the project will be prioritized on they call it the chief's list. The expectation is in February of 2019, it's approximately a $3 million study. That $3 million needs to be included in the budget. So that's what we're waiting for. If that $3 million gets allocated for the project, then the project will proceed in a study form, and they'll be working directly with the city of Hartford, East Hartford, and the MDC.
It's in a process that it has to be completed. One of the problems to get into that process is the only way you're going to get the money, and it's taken us, what, 3?
Since we started talking about this in 2012.
Well, so it's taken us 6 years to get into that process. It's not unusual. Most people don't make it into the process. Any further questions? What's that, about 107 million?
The request was 77, but to your point, the total between both cities was over 100 and some odd million dollars.
No further questions. District Council?
Nothing to report.
Bureau of Public Works, discussion regarding integrated plan technical approach. This will be a brief 15-minute presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having me. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Joel Liberty with CDM Smith, and I'm here to try to do in 15 minutes what took us a little over an hour at the BPW Commission. So a quick agenda. I'm going to give a summary of the efforts to date over the last 2 years, a baseline assumption to renew the sewer system, discuss the high points of our recommended technical plan. I did a full walkthrough of that plan with BPW. I will not be doing that within this 15 minutes. One thing that, to note related to that would be The obvious question is always, over what time period, how much will it cost, what does it mean to the rates? That is not going to be discussed tonight. I'll be before you again on October 1st at your next board meeting, and that's what will be presented at that meeting, what this technical plan means to schedule and affordability. I'll talk quickly about the EPA near the curve analysis, which is complex, and then I'll talk about the next steps. So summary of the effort to date. This is just one slide talking about what we've been working on over the last 2 years. I gave a presentation to BPW on August 6th that had gone over this, and again, that was an hour-long presentation. Reviewed the integrated planning approach. I have a slide on my next slide. I'll talk about that a little bit more. The needs assessment for the district. This is the needs for all of your utilities without consideration for addressing the combined sewer overflow issue in your consent order. These are things that you would need to do regardless of what EPA and DEP is asking you to do. We looked at the collection system, pump station plants, O&M, and the water system. And we looked at the recent emergency repairs and the benefit of cleaning the system. And one thing to note would be the amount of workshops and meetings that has gone into this. We've had in the last year over 40 meetings with the MDC at all levels to gather what the needs are for your system, from staff out in the field to managers all the way up to the director, the appropriate director, depending on which bucket that we were meeting on for collection system versus pump stations and whatnot. DEEP represented was at 17 of those meetings, which is very important. They've been completely engaged in this whole process. When we went through this back in 2012, we actually had a process where DEP did not come to as many meetings during this, whereas in the last year they've come to 17 meetings. So they're well aware of the plan that's coming to them. And then we ranked all of the projects. It was about 150 total projects. We scored and ranked them with a process that DEP was attribute to, which then determined which project was number one versus which project was, say, 150. This is the integrated planning approach in a nutshell. You might have seen this slide a few times, but I always walk through it because this is the basic nutshell of what we're trying to do. The last time that we did the long-term control plan update, it was captured in this volume 2. These volumes 1, 2, and 3 are each report sections. Volume 2 is the typical long-term control plan, the CSO plan. What are you going to do to address your CSOs? How are you going to eliminate CSOs to the north branch of the Park River and control all other CSOs to a one-year storm? So that's going to look similar to what the 2012 report looked like. The integrated plan is bringing in volume 1, which is up top, which is your needs assessment that I just talked about. What are the other things in your system that you need to do regardless of your consent order and your consent decree? And that all is going to get summarized in its own report that will be called the needs assessment. What we're looking for as part of this integrated plan is projects that are in the middle, that are infrastructure improvements that address both a need for your system as well as address the CSOs as part of your consent order. These two volumes are going to feed into what is volume 3, which will become the integrated plan, your base map, your road plan for the next, say, couple decades, which will then include the schedule and the affordability analysis. That's what I will be meeting to talk to you about on October 1st. So the baseline assumption is a 10% II removal system-wide. The purpose of that is to do a complete system renewal, not complete, you'll see in a minute, it'll be about a half of the system, to completely renew your system with about $400 million that's prioritized over, say, building a tunnel system, which I'll go into in a little bit more. Many of the projects that are carried under this baseline in the past would have been carried under ad valorem because we were dealing with these separately. The CSO, say the South Tunnel, was only looking at addressing CSOs, and then ad valorem, with the charges that went to ad valorem, we're looking at your infrastructure needs. What we're looking for is projects that are addressing both, of which case they are going to move over to the clean water charge and be part of the clean water project as opposed to on ad valorem. Sewer rehabilitation has the dual benefit of repairing the infrastructure while reducing flows, and will coordinate with the major water main infrastructure improvements that was noted earlier tonight as part of these projects. One recent example of a failure that I've shown a number of times would be Homestead Avenue. That's the one that resonates the most with everyone. That was a failure in last winter. 40 feet of pipe cost the district $600,000 to repair, which is significant. So obviously, one of the things that we're trying to do is to proactively get ahead of these. You seem to be having significant failures in your 100 to 150-year-old sewer system that's happening on a month-to-month-to-month basis. And so one of our long-term solution is to try to get ahead of that, rehab the pipe before it fails. And in this particular case, we looked at two options, one which would be to rehab the rest of the pipe, and the other option, which we wound up incorporated into the long-term control plan, is to actually replace it with a larger pipe. So thus, the scenario of addressing the infrastructure problem by replacing it, but making it a larger pipe, which then will address the CSOs. This is a snapshot of where we are with talking about doing a complete system renewal. The completed to date, on the left-hand side of the table is the member towns that feed into Hartford, so that's this section of the table. The right side is Hartford itself. Completed column, this is the percentage of sewers that we, over the last 10 years, since the inception of the Clean Water Project, have rehabilitated to turn them into the equivalent of new sewers, which is 24% of the system. We've focused a lot on the sewer system outside of Hartford because of the SSO consent decree. The recommendations in our proposed plan are to continue to do additional rehab for these totals here, which totals approximately 50% renewal of all the sewers in the towns around Hartford. Of significant note would be Hartford itself, which actually is the oldest sewer system in your collection system. It was the first one built. It's the old brick sewers. To date, in the last 10 years for the Clean Water Project, while we have done some separation projects, we have only addressed 6% of the existing sewer system, the existing 100 to 150-year-old sewer system. So one of the major things that we'll be looking at doing with this integrated plan is to renew the Hartford sewer system, the system that keeps failing on a month-to-month basis. And you see in this column here how much we're recommending for rehabilitation over the next couple decades. And the total, where then when we're done, we would have renewed over half of the sewer system in Hartford as part of our integrated plan. I'm going to go over the high points of the recommended plan. Specifically, I'll talk about the downtown tunnel, the new North Branch interceptor, and the tunnel extension into North Hartford versus doing a different alternative CSO control strategy, and then the ranking of all of those projects. So the downtown tunnel, I think we've talked about this in the past. There is a number of CSOs through the downtown area, which are actually, this is downtown. This is downtown all through here. There's a number of CSO regulators through here which actually represent 80% or more of your CSO volume. And to do it with any other method other than a tunnel storage would be very difficult, very costly, more costly. So no matter what, you would need a tunnel system in order to address those CSOs. So we looked at a bunch of alternatives, and we're recommending, similar to what we had back in the 2012 alternative, a tunnel system that connects to the south tunnel over here near Brookfield. That tunnel connection is planned in the south tunnel contract, and it would go up and over into downtown and pick up this, and then go over into Franklin with a consolidation conduit. That would address your downtown CSOs, and the cost of that is $380 million. What we're looking to do with the integrated plan is to take that needed expenditure and push it out a decade or two into the late 30s, while in the meantime you address the other portions of your infrastructure. I went through a number of these alternatives where we looked at two different things with BPW, where we looked at two different ways of addressing CSOs, either through using the existing system or through a various alternatives. So the example that I'm going to give just for the board here is the new North Branch interceptor. This is located on the west portion of Hartford. This is Farmington Avenue over here, and this is Asylum over here. And basically, you have an existing interceptor that has 3 siphons. It crosses the North Branch of the Park River 3 different times. And the result of it is it's in very poor access area. And the result is that it's hard to maintain. It typically fills up with debris, so it does not convey full capacity of the pipe. The MDC recently cleaned that with an outside contractor, and it cost roughly $500,000 to clean it. And in order to maintain the capacity in that pipe, it probably would need to be cleaned on a yearly or biannual basis. And so in lieu of doing that, to maintain the existing system, we looked at the alternative to replace that pipe with a new pipe without siphons that basically also picks up the CSO structures N9 and N10, which are required to be completely eliminated. So basically addressing the O&M concern and addressing the CSO concern to eliminate those regulators. This is the cost of those two alternatives. So the alternative on the left would be to maintain the use of your existing system, and what we would need to do related to that, it's roughly $31 million for all the various components. And the alternative on the right is to replace it and to remove the operation and maintenance nightmare of trying to maintain those siphons in the cross-country area. They're roughly the same cost, but the difference is that the asterisk is noting the asterisk that you see here is noting which portions of this would be eligible for DEP state grant. In the case of maintaining your existing system, only a small portion of that $31 million would be eligible for the grant, whereas replacing the pipe with new infrastructure as part of a new infrastructure renewal program, the entire project would be eligible for 50% grant because you would be resolving your N9 and N10 CSO regulator commitment to complete elimination. So thus, the actual cost to the MDC for that new 60-inch pipe would be roughly $15 to $16 million, as opposed to, say, the high 20 millions, and you'd be getting a new pipe to replace the old pipe. The other example that I will give is the northern area of the long-term control plan, which was very contentious over the last couple of years. The prior plan was to bring a tunnel up to northern Hartford. So the plan on the right shows, it's a little bit different variation of what you saw before, but this shows a tunnel system that would go up into North Hartford, over to the Granby area and pick up those CSOs. Looks fairly similar to what we had in 2012. The plan on the right is the alternative without a tunnel. The colors aren't showing up very well, but you have a handout that shows the colors on there. Where you see shading on your handout, which is up here and here, we're looking at doing sewer separation and replacing the Homestead Avenue interceptor. That's this pipe here, which just failed as part of the plan. So again, infrastructure renewal was a pipe that just failed, and replacing the NEI with the pipe over here, which is another pipe that has had significant O&M concerns. Those two major plans stacked up side by side is what you see here. So the separation plan, as we're calling it, is more expensive, $350 million, compared to the old plan of just building a tunnel system, which was $282 million. So on the surface, you would say, okay, why wouldn't I still stay with the tunnel plan? But the major difference is the second bullet. The plan on the left with sewer separation is renewing your existing assets. So it's taking care of that 50%. In those areas where we're doing separation, it's taking care of that 50% asset renewal to turn your 100, 150-year-old system into a new system, whereas the tunnel plan is doing similar to what we did on the south tunnel. We're just building a tunnel. We're building more capacity to pick up those CSOs, and we're not addressing the sewer system. So it's not an apple and an apple. The other key thing to note here is a tunnel is one large project, so it can't be phased. So in thinking of N2 and N4, which discharge the north branch of the Park River that need to be completely eliminated, we will not reduce CSOs at all over the entire life of the time to start the tunnel project and complete the tunnel project, which could be decades. Until it is done, that's when we would start reducing CSOs. But if we did the plan on the right, it would be phased where every time we do a separation project in the Granby area, we will continue to reduce CSOs and show progress over time to reducing CSOs and controlling the CSOs that go to the North Branch of Park River and elsewhere. So the one on the left is integrated planning, and the one on the right is, just CSO planning. And so what we're recommending is the plan on the left to try to, fit with integrated planning and infrastructure renewal. We then ranked all of these projects, again, with DEP, and the top project wound up coming out to be the NNBI replacement. But all of these projects had a myriad of things that we looked at with DEP. We looked at water quality, we looked at O&M, we looked at life expectancy, we looked at the costs, we looked at regulatory factors. All of those things had weight, and they had percentages that factored into how these projects ultimately got scored. We then put all of the projects through that ranking system, and this was the result of it. Projects, like I mentioned at the beginning, that addressed an O&M concern or addressed your collection system and also addressed the CSOs are the ones that rank the highest because that's what we were always looking for. So the top projects in yellow are all CSO LTCP projects that are part of the CSO plan that would be in Volume 2. I went down to item 17 because you start to see where projects that aren't in Volume 2 show up that are still part of the integrated plan. And the different colors are pump station, the top pump station project showed up here. Collection system, or the projects in white are here. You see another pump station project, and you see a treatment plant project. This list, I'm showing the top 17, but this list went all the way down to 150-something project, but it shows you that not all just strictly CSO projects went to the top of the list. The projects that had the most need, for whatever it may be, also show up as well. This is the knee of the curve analysis. This is an EPA analysis that basically they are saying that how much money you spend as you go through with each level of control. You're required to do a 1-year level of control for most of your regulators and complete elimination for a few of them that go to North Branch or Weathersfield Cove. This is to look at how much it would cost to go to a 1-month level of control versus 3-month versus 6-month versus 1 year. We had done this analysis back in 2005, and the results showed that the cost-effective break point was between a 3 and a 6-month storm as to what would be considered cost-effective, and anything beyond that would mean that you're spending money that's beyond being cost-effective. And this pretty much shows that as well, because you can capture 95 to 98% of the remaining CSOs with $750 to say $900 million. That's the 3 to the 6 month storm. To capture that remaining 2 to 5% is what's taking you all the way up to $1.1 billion. So it's a significant effort to go beyond the 1-year storm. So the logical, and then the $400 million, I just want to point out, what's in yellow is the $400 million is your infrastructure renewal. That will get you 34% reduction in your remaining CSOs, and the other one I showed in yellow is where your consent order requires you to be. The logical conclusion from this would be, well, why don't I try to argue for a 3 or a 6 month storm? What makes up the 3 or the 6 month storm is primarily the downtown tunnel. So you would have to start that downtown tunnel now. And I had shown this before. We need to update this, and you'll see an updated version of this on October 1st. Basically, your current consent order and your current long-term control plan is this gray shaded area which basically says this is all of your CSO funding. You need to finish it by 2029. Where the tunnel system resided was right in here. What we've been talking about over the last year is taking that tunnel system and trying to move it out to 2038 and beyond, and using the funding that you would have spent on ad valorem with clean water, which is this green expenditure, this is time going along here, and spending it on projects that achieve both goals, like I've been talking about. And so by pushing that tunnel project out, that's what is allowing you to spend the money on the infrastructure projects that are achieving both goals. If we just went to a 3 or a 6 month storm, logically what DEP would say is, okay, if they did agree to it, they would tell you, we'll start building the tunnel now, and what you'd have left behind is the 100 or 150-year-old sewer system that now you have still done nothing with for the next, say, decade, and it'll continue to fail. So you're actually, better off from a standpoint of trying to agree with the plan that you have, but asking for more time to build that major tunnel while you're addressing your system and CSOs at the same time. So this is the next steps. Over the next couple months, it's going to be very active for me, to say the least. But we're currently completing the affordability analysis. The plan is to present that to BPW on September 26th. That will identify the schedule, what the rate would look like in order to do that schedule, both with and without grants, and what it means to affordability, both for Hartford and for all of the individual towns. The October 5th date is a misprint. I'm sorry, that should be October 1st. But on October 1st, we would then present this full plan again to this board here. We would also present the conclusion of the affordability analysis for final consideration and approval. Assuming that we did receive approval at that October 1st meeting, we would then start to go to all of the town councils over the months of October and November to present and gain support from the towns in this revised plan, this integrated plan. We would finalize the integrated plan and submit it to the district in November. In early December, we would have a public hearing. Last time around, we had the public hearing after we submitted the report. That actually is not normal. The normal practice is to do it before you submit the final report, and DEP agrees. Last time, DEP specifically asked us not to do the public hearing before we submitted it. In this case, we both agree that we will do it prior to submittal, and then all 3 volumes will be submitted to DEP by December 31st. And that's my last slide. I don't know if I did it in 15 minutes or not. I probably was close, but any questions?
Joe?
The CSO's sewer overflow, that's what that stands for?
Combined sewer overflow, yes.
Does anyone have any other questions? Commissioner?
So, with respect to the north tunnel, we're not suggesting that we just stop working in the north end. We have, you're using, the phased approach gives us a little breather in funding, so we don't have the huge expense of another $500 million for the north tunnel. We're still doing capital improvements. We're doing it in a phased way, and we're still getting to those areas. And what I'm hoping that you can, so the shaded areas, certainly the one in the northwest corner, it's more residential. So it's not like we're, inhibiting some major, commercial enterprise by not doing this. These sort of surviving what they got now. It's not good, but the added benefit of phasing it is that we're replacing the whole infrastructure when we do it.
Correct. Correct. And
we're with the tunnel, we're not doing that. We're
correct.
not replacing the infrastructure.
And it may not have come across when I was talking about delaying, when I'm saying that the tunnel project is out in the future, what's going on in the next, say, 2 decades is all of the projects that are in the north that I talked about, all the separation that's what, and they'd be in manageable packages of, say, $20 million packages versus a $400 million tunnel. And then included, not shown in shade, because it's not part of the CSO plan, but it's part of the integrated plan, would be rehabbing all of the sewers, not all of them, 50% of the sewers throughout Hartford, which may not necessarily be in those shaded areas. Like the large diameter sewers are the ones that seem to be failing now, your major interceptors. Well, there's a plan, that Jason's been working on to develop, to rehab those sewers over the next, say, decade or two as part of this plan. So it's an infrastructure renewal is where we'll be spending the money.
In the downtown area, and I run into these myself with construction I have to do, are the brick arch sewers that were built. We just ran into one that was built in 1859. So
Right.
it's still operating.
Right.
I don't know how well it is, but there's nothing. Once you dig it up, it's over. You got to.
Yeah. It's fascinating to think that the sewers that they built out of brick in the 1850s, 60s, and 70s have lasted this long. It's absolutely fascinating to the people who built them back then. What we're trying to do, if you run those to failure, it's going to be a huge cost to replace those. What we're going to do is primarily try to line them, like we've done in the communities outside of Hartford. We're going to try to put a pipe within the pipe that basically will renew the brick sewer into a new pipe. It'll function as a new pipe without excavation.
How disruptive is this going to be for homeowners in some of those areas?
So for where we're doing separation, there's no way to caveat that. Separation is disruptive. I mean, we're going to be on the street digging, but when we're done, they're going to have a new sewer, likely a new water. Potentially the gas main would get replaced as well to have a new street, new sidewalk, whatever it may be. I mean, that's the benefit of separation is when you're done, it's great. As you're going through the separation project itself, it's clearly disruptive.
Commissioner, just lessons learned. Yeah. One of the largest one of the largest separation projects we did, which was on Albany Avenue. We had like 5 projects going on at the same time. We also did a large project at Granby Street. We would not do that this time. So the reason why the separation project was difficult to do on the southern part of the city was because of the time frame in which the DEP was giving us to complete the projects. What we're proposing is to take slow down the project to say, do smaller projects anywhere from $5 to $20 million, and not do what we did on Albany Avenue or in Tower or in Franklin Avenue. So much smaller projects, less impact to the overall community.
When do we project getting to the goal of replacing 10 miles of pipes annually?
So you're referring to the water main.
Water main, right.
Right, water
Right, so we answered that question at the BPW, and
I asked a question, but I didn't get an answer.
oh, I think we did. So here's what we're planning, and Sue had mentioned, our goal, when we're doing separation work, we were doing 5 to 6 miles a year. After we went away from separation, we went down to 1 or 2. Our goal is 4 miles this year. And our goal is to get to 10 miles per year. The challenge that we have with getting there is having the vehicle to get there. So we have water rates. Obviously, debt service impacts the water rates. So we have to plan, get approval from the board to move forward with those projects to get us to that point. But our goal is to get to 10 miles within 5 years.
Within 5 years?
Yes.
And hopefully there's a national infrastructure bill and the federal government gets back into sewer and water. They get out in 1977, 76. Further questions? No further questions? No questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe. The next one, item 10, is going to require a executive session. So I'm going to take up 12 for those people in the public that want to make a comment about the existing agenda. Opportunity for general public comments. Is there any? Uh-oh.
Judy Allen, West Hartford. I recently had to replace a section of the sewer pipe in my front yard, which, as you know, costs a small fortune. So the new dishwasher I had my eye on will have to wait. And I looked at ways to cut costs, including things like dining out, Dunkin' Donuts coffee, movies, new shoes, and added up these things will not pay for the sewer project, but could be enough to help with the monthly loan payments. My budget is tiny compared to the MDC, but some of the same principles apply. Large things like wages and pensions get first attention when reining in costs. My point is that small things need attention too. One of my pet peeves is paper. I mentioned it here before, but last week's news clips really got my attention. It was 23 pages long, all printed on one side. There's a cover sheet and a description of the contents, which could be two-sided, so save one piece of paper. There's a 2-page current article on the tunnel, followed by 3 pages of the same article. You could eliminate 3 pages. There's an article about the MDC imposters, and one article that WEHA did that was 3 pages, followed by 2-page current article that covered the same information. So you could eliminate the 3-page, probably go to the 2-page, print it on 2 sides, and you save 3 pieces of paper. All the rest are things that could have been printed on 2 sides of the paper. My calculation, this would have cut the number of pieces of paper in half. If these have been created just for commissioners, I'd like you to take a hard look at the service that you're doing and the charge that you have to oversee the finances and the resources of the MDC. You're not a Fortune 500 company. You don't need your logo embedded in the sidewalk in front of the entrance. I suspect that my paper issue represents a long-standing culture at the MDC that extends to other things as well. So I looked at the news clips for this month, and it's 15 pages long, and according to my calculations, half of that could be eliminated by eliminating the duplication and two-sided. Thank you.
Further comments? If not, could we move back to item 10? Consideration and potential action regarding Department of Energy and Environmental Protection discharge of wastewater from the former Hartford landfill into the district's sanitary sewer. Executive session possible.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for an executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Would the attorney please specify who can remain in the chamber?
I'd like to have Chris Stone, Tom
All those in favor of the motion to come out of executive session, please certify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're back into general session. Is there an amendment? There's some amendment. Is there an amendment? Is there a motion?
There is a motion. So move the resolution as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. There's a couple of amendments.
The proposed amendments in the second paragraph, be it further resolved that district chairman and district council, so inserting district chairman, and I apologize, in the first paragraph, District Chairman DeBella, Commissioner Klee, and Secretary of OPM Barnes.
The amendment is putting Barnes' name in there. Any objection to those amendments? Being there no objections, the motion is before us as amended. Any further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The appropriate, is there commissioners' questions and comments? Tom?
Yes, I just want to thank Attorney John Myrtle for all his help. Newington was thinking about redoing its ordinances on hydrants, and he's been very helpful. So I want to thank you very much for all your help.
There you go.
And I also want to thank Nick for all his PR work. I've seen an increased amount of stuff on social media, and I'd like to publicly thank him, too, for all that.
Thank you. Any further comments? If not, all those in favor, without objection, we stand adjourned. Okay.